anything. So thank you for having me. Thank you for this thing, SmallJS, which I've been working, I don't know, maybe coming up to 2 years now. So I certainly already had a lot of fun in making it. I'm going to repeat this, I think, once more, but also Giovanni also said it. This is more, you're all like probably experienced Smalltalk users used to an integrated development IDE with an image. This is slightly different, but it's also the idea to an idea to attract more users, but also for development it can have its pluses. But I'm going to talk about that in the presentation. Oh yeah, okay, now I see. Yeah, the right part is under the So we have indeed SmallJS. Yeah, I stole it a bit, the hot air balloon. I also recently for my own birthday, got it. So I'm the proud owner of this by the magazine. Reread it. But I did read it at the time when it came out, and it was really amazing. I don't know if people know this article because it's 1981. It was actually not available for sale then because you had to have a computer worth $40,000 to run it. But still, Byte thought it good to have a 20-page article about it. So we all know why Smalltalk is nice. A little bit about me. My name is Richard Ronteltap, which is indeed also a strange name, Ronteltap. So if in Holland there's somebody called Ronteltap, it's probably family of me, they're not too much. Live in Amsterdam, studied computer science at the University of Amsterdam. And I'm obliged to say that's where I met my wife. Now in the same study, also computer science study. And I now work there again after some other jobs as an IT department head within the larger ICTS services. Application management, which is the management of application, but also application development within the university. For my work, I try to keep to mainstream languages because we don't have so much development capacity. My thesis was on object-oriented databases in '93. Didn't take off quite here, but I wanted to do something with object-oriented, which was quite new then. So as a kind of side project, I wrote a query optimizer for one of the databases, prototype databases in Smalltalk 80 on the Linux Unix workstation. Linux wasn't there yet. So that was the first contact, you might say, with Smalltalk, and I also discovered some other Smalltalks in the longer run. These, but a few more also. Why should we want to make SmallJS? Because there are already existing very nice Smalltalks. I want to make modern applications in Smalltalk, specifically web apps, and that is not the optimal fit for the existing Smalltalk. And also use the same language in the front end and the back end. Making the back end in Smalltalk is quite doable with the existing big and good ones, but the front end, not so much. And if you're going to have the same language in the front end and the back end, that is nice. I also wanted to promote Smalltalk, specifically to developers of JavaScript, PHP, Ruby, maybe some more. To bring in back the elegance of a language and not all these latest features. Also, I'm a bit of a software theorist, and if I see the painful development, for example, PHP has gone through, that is painful and unnecessary. And JavaScript, probably, maybe most of you people know JavaScript because you cannot avoid it. There are some nasty things in there which you probably don't want to deal with on a daily basis. By the way, if there are any questions in between, just ask me, then it will be fine for the time. Okay. So in JavaScript Smalltalk solutions, there are some already: Amber Smalltalk, Pharo.js, and Seaside. But I did look at them before, but I wanted to have something more integrated, and maybe Amber Smalltalk is an example that really lives in the browser. But also it requires you to have your IDE also in the browser, which I think is not very nice. And yeah, the development speed has been near zero, I think, for a year or two now. So that is too bad. Yeah, and yeah, having a separate IDE, it's the last bullet, is quite nice. The Visual Studio Code, which SmallJS is made for, is quite nice. It also, this setup makes it easy to have a modular image. And so not the whole image is loaded, only the parts the parts you compile are loaded. And secondly, the parts you actually use from your starting class are loaded, even if you compile a bigger part of the SmallJS image, as you could say, but you can also say it's a library. But I think I'm getting ahead a bit. Yeah, so what is SmallJS? It's a transpiler from Smalltalk to lightweight JavaScript. It does actually use the JavaScript class system for most of its stuff. So the produced JavaScript is quite readable. But it needs to be more flexible than JavaScript is. So as in Smalltalk, also the classes are objects themselves in SmallJS, just an ordinary JavaScript objects which you can do nice manipulation with. Yeah, so it runs in the modern browsers and Node.js. Yeah, with modern browsers, I mean Chrome and Edge, the Chromium browsers, and Firefox. I did not dare to try Safari yet, but I'm keeping to the main standard. Oops, sorry.
I also don't see a lively kernel.
Live kernel, no, you could not.
Lively kernel. Dan Engels wrote a complete system in JavaScript on top of the browser.
Yeah, and is that the one that can run, for example, Squeak, or is it something else? Or
also a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah. That's a different approach. Then you have like a traditional Smalltalk image in the browser. SmallJS just runs a bunch of JavaScript classes, which
lively kernel is in JavaScript.
But the code you run, is that also JavaScript, or is it?
Yeah. Lively kernel is completely in JavaScript. We implemented Squeak inside it, but you don't have to. You can just use the JavaScript lively kernel.
Maybe I have to check it out, the lively kernel. I'll make a note. Yeah, so it's the language, is fully supported, the Smalltalk 80 language. Yeah, so that is, if you know the language, then you can just go ahead and write in SmallJS dialect. It's source file based, not image based. That has also to do with the modularity and the easy integration with other JavaScript. Hey, and normally you probably have a bunch of npm libraries you want to use, and you want to have them next to your Smalltalk. Yeah, Visual Studio Code is used as the IDE. Very nice thing I think in there is syntax coloring and step debugging. Well, the syntax coloring, that was easy. Just write some, what's it called again? Some language markup standard, text something. But the step debugging is done through source maps. That is where you generate a translation layer from your Smalltalk code, in this case, to the generated JavaScript code, and then you can run through the Smalltalk code step by step. I can show it later in the demo. It has system-wise built-in unit testing. That's just a simple thing. If I derive from a class called test, then every method that's called test is automatically included in the unit testing. So that is a low effort thing to always create unit tests for everything that's run. I have a job, so I don't have a lot of time for bug finding. So everything has to just work. And I also implemented for all the browser examples, I implemented GUI testing. And that is just another Smalltalk class pressing the buttons on the GUI class, on the GUI application, but running in the browser. There is a playground available, so to have to evaluate arbitrary expressions. It's on the website of it, but it's also part of the GitHub repo. You can also run it locally if you want. And yeah, it's of course free and open source to make it more popular and make Smalltalk more popular. Yeah, so the Smalltalk SmallJS libraries, or you might say the image and what's in there. Yeah, it's the basic Smalltalk classes. Yeah, what I did include was a full Smalltalk magnitude hierarchy. You might also call it a number hierarchy. And so it's got things like fractions and long ints and big ints in there. And so in the generated JavaScript, an integer is also really a Smalltalk integer object, so I can do anything with it I want. I'm not limited to what JavaScript can do, and I'm also not limited by the strange behavior that JavaScript sometimes has with numbers and casting. Events and streams are in there. Yeah, and then maybe I don't want to read them out loud. You can see it here for the browser. You have your basic HTML elements, document window, and canvas. So that's a full implementation. So you can paint anything in two dimensions with from Smalltalk now. It's actually quite expensive library, that the Canvas API. And web workers, yeah, that's also a thing that allows you to do real multi-threading concurrency, that actually uses multiple cores or multiple CPUs if you want to run it. And yeah, you have in the world the likes of React and Angular. Those are very heavyweight things. I made a simple lightweight thing in SmallJS to be able to make single page application. I'm probably going to say it later, but if there's a shopping example, web shop example, one client is implemented as a traditional refresh the page, if you go to a different part of the shop, and one is an SPA which always stays on the same page. They look exactly the same pixel-wise, but one is really an SPA. And on the backend, on Node.js, yeah, you have an HTTP server, of course, with Express. That's most used. Worker threads for the multi-threading. And file support is handy. Then you have these databases that are listed here with an also lightweight object relational mapper, which translates your Smalltalk objects to rows into a database. And the shortcut I think I took is I require then the rows to have a auto number column value ID, so I can easily always know where to find back an object in the table. Works quite well because almost all databases are structured like that. Oh yeah, and this latest one is OpenAI. That's the current development. I have checked in this week the support for OpenAI and DeepSeek only in the backend. I will make I have 2 more to come, and I will also make a front-end example with it, so you can ask arbitrary questions among different 4 different AIs. And also somebody asked to record the conversation. That's still a feature that needs to be added. Desktop support, yeah, that's if you want that and not a web server, then there's Electron and Node GUI, and there's also basic support for generating those types of applications. I must say it's not fully expanded. I'm just seeing if somebody wants to do it, wants to use it, then I can expand the support of it. This means wrapping the APIs of Electron and Node GUI in one-line Smalltalk encapsulation methods and making a test for it. It's not hard to do, but I just want to wait if there's more popularity before doing it. And there are 8 example projects to show off these things that are on this page. So you can test them with them yourself. And if you want to make a Node GUI application, I would recommend just copying the test project and then you then building your application from that. Yeah, let's talk about features. How does it look? Well, this is probably for most familiar the Visual Studio Code setup. On the left, you can see the just the source directory, and within that, I put in a Smalltalk subdirectory. It's not required, but just to make it orderly. And then you have ST files, which every ST file is one class. That's currently the model. And yeah, just putting your Smalltalk code there. But you can also write your application, JavaScript or TypeScript functions files below that to have a mix if you still want. In my example application, I only have one file just to start up the Smalltalk thing and then be done with JavaScript, but you can have more. And on the right, you have a example of how it looks then. But I can show all these examples live if you want. So now indeed we're getting into the territory which is known for Smalltalkers, so I will go through it quickly. Language fits on a postcard, objects all the way down everywhere, well-defined behaviors. We'll get to that in the new slide. And yeah, in the end, I struggled a bit. Should I use the Smalltalk standard way of doing things with strings and arrays or do the JavaScript way? And I ended up copying all of the JavaScript way because that's more the larger audience to win over. Small side effect is that arrays start at 0 in SmallJS, so keep that in mind. And you can mix and match if you are using JavaScript. This is the postcard. Probably people know it. And actually the syntax is only on the bottom left here. Yeah, it's just to convince JavaScript people to see how elegant it is. I did a little comparison for the number hierarchy. On the left, SmallJS, and on the right is JavaScript. And you start with, it's not easy to go into the JavaScript code, so you have to make a utility class. It's not really true, but practically you want to do that. And if you see, now, if you want to square a number, 10 squared, that goes okay. If you do 1.5 squared, that still also goes okay. If you do 1 divided by 3, you get automatically into a float with JavaScript, so you lose precision. And if you square in SmallJS, this number with a lot of 9s here, then it's automatically converted to a JavaScript bigint underneath, like Smalltalk normally works. Normally it's called large integer. If you do it in JavaScript, you get converted into a float and you get the wrong answer. And of course, JavaScript has this kind of not nice coercion that it tries to make numbers of strings, everything coerce. So if you say in JavaScript, the square root of the letter of the string s, you get not a number. And if you do it in SmallJS, you say, no, this is an error. You don't want to do this. So all this to convince JavaScript people. Then, we might not stay too long on this one. Like languages like JavaScript all have, every year or so, some new features added to the language. And here's a little comparison table. If a new feature, how you do those things in Smalltalk. I think if you're a Smalltalk experienced people here, then you will know how to do this. So the philosophy on the right is important. If you to keep simplicity, Smalltalk has extreme and good simplicity, then it's worth doing a few extra lines of code which are encapsulated once you've done them. For example, getters and setters. It's a good thing to have because if later on you want to do something within a getter or a setter, then you have a natural point. And if you do that in another language, you have to convert all the calling code. Yeah, then if you are a small talker and you are have experience with Faro, Dolphin, or Syncom Smalltalks or Squeak, why would you use SmallJS? Well, there are some differences, as said. It's file-based and not image-based, but that makes the advantage is that it's easy to source code control. Don't need any modules for it. I just use whatever standard there is. So Visual Studio Code has built in. I personally admit I use GitHub Desktop. That's the most easy one. And your IDE is safe, is separately safe from your running image. So a live image is okay, but also things can go wrong while developing, and then you can also lose your source code. That's not so nice. Having this setup also makes it easy to have a modular image with dynamically loaded classes only when necessary. Most Smalltalks have everything in one big image and then rely on a process called stripping. But that is not safe and it's not an exact science. So things can go wrong there. And if you do it in the reverse, it can not go wrong. You just include what you need only. And yeah, using the Visual Studio Code IDE, I find it quite nice to use this one or another one. There are quite similar Visual Studio or IntelliJ or the web versions of IntelliStar. Yeah, that's also the big selling point, of course, is it can run anywhere, your SmallJS code compiled to JavaScript in the browsers and in Node.js. It works fine on mobile devices, and the executable is also quite small, so for deployment is easy. Yeah, and I say executables, of course, a JavaScript file. And yeah, the JavaScript ecosystem is quite rich. So yeah, if you want to use any of the, let's say, millions of NPM packages that are out there, new ones being created all the time, then it's easy to do. So now implementing AI, well, just looked it up. Yeah, there are fine OpenAI packages. Just use those and make your own Smalltalk abstraction from it. Yeah, the interoperability with JavaScript from Smalltalk is also good. It's because also it mirrors the class structure of JavaScript, so there's just some slightly mangled naming for the Smalltalk things, but it's fairly recognizable. You have to put some $signs somewhere to avoid name clashes with the JavaScript keywords, but that's easy to do. Yeah, I think that's this one. That's it. Smalltalk trade-offs. Yeah, that goes for all or most of the trade-offs. And we know that Smalltalk is dynamically typed. So this is in comparison with TypeScript. TypeScript does have some advantages. Well, in Smalltalk, there have been some efforts, I think, Strongtalk is one of them, had to put types in Smalltalk. Yeah, maybe this is an idea in my head, maybe to add it later on one level to have type safety installed, but are you going to enforce it? I don't know yet, so I don't know. And yeah, you could, the IDE can also help you to infer some types, but then something that is needed is called a language server. This is a whole project in itself. And maybe when I'm it will be hard to do when I'm currently having a busy daytime job, so maybe not soon. No namespaces. Yeah, I think Dolphin Smalltalk has them now, but yeah, they're okay to have, but in the startup phase, maybe not so. And of course, there's not a lot of users of SmallJS. I think maybe 1 or 2 or 3, including myself. So that is, of course, hard if you want to develop professionally. Yeah, then again, nearing the end summary. Smalltalk is elegant, you already know that. It integrates with JavaScript and uses the familiar JavaScript class and method names if you know them already. You can use it from an IDE and you can mix and match. Now, this is again more directed towards existing JavaScript and TypeScript developers. Okay, now we're at the demo things. These are some demos, and just quickly switch to the next page. These are some more advanced technical things. So yeah, I was going to ask which one do you want to see, but are there any, maybe I suggest I'm using to-do app is like the one slightly more complex, but Mark, you want to say something or?
Yeah, in the code example that you showed earlier, I saw how you define a method in your Smalltalk, but I didn't see how you decide for a class, what are its instance and class properties or variables?
Yeah, okay. I will show that, yeah. And I think then now, yeah, let me just, for me, yeah, now my Zoom interaction, I think I'm going to hopefully not leave the meeting, but close this sharing window. Or no, Zoom. No, let's try. What happens? Still there? Yeah. Okay, great. And then now I'm going to share my screen. Yeah. This recursive sharing. So this is the to-do application. Yeah, let me just, for fun, first, this is the standard Visual Studio Code setup. So you can also run it in regression test mode. This just calls the GUI test automatically. So let's do that just for fun. You have to watch it. It happens in a couple of seconds, like 5-10 seconds. It uses all the little features of the to-do app, like sorting and deleting and inserting and changing the language to Spanish. And then if the test exits, then everything went well. So let's do that first. Hope it works. Oh yeah, it quickly compiles now, you see in the bottom. That takes about a second to compile everything. So I'm still happy about that. Oh yeah, and so this is not working because I forgot to start up the web server for it. This uses a static web server. This is just the standard Node PM web server. This could be any web server, but I'm using here the npm web server. But it yeah, it needs to run for this thing to complete. So let's try it again. Compiles, as you can see, like within a second, it compiles all the Smalltalk. And now, oh yeah. Then first, this is the debug breakpoint I was going to show later. So now it's, yeah, you see, it quickly changes, does something. Yeah. Change the language to Spanish, and we're done. Okay. So now your question, Mark, this is, yeah, actually, I have to find now an example which is happening, because the way I do it is just by putting in the keywords class method and methods, but this one, the default is methods, so this one doesn't have it. Let me go to, for example, this is the to-do project I have here. Below, this is the Smalltalk library, so this contains all the Smalltalk source code. So I can just go here to magnitude and let's say integer. Yeah, this is a good one. Also good to see a little under the hood. You see here is the home, my own thought of keyword class methods. Yeah? So every methods after this are class methods. And here you can see how do I create a Smalltalk integer from a JavaScript, an actual JavaScript object. And now you can see here some inline code also. This is also an extra keyword to be able to just call JavaScript functionality. So if I want to have a random thing, I could do it in the playground. If I say integer random and then min max, I get a random integer from min to max, and that is calling this function. And here we switch back to methods. And yeah, here you see the methods of an integer. This is actually a bit of the trickier code to do the automatic conversions to big integers so that the user doesn't have to worry about it.
Question.
Yeah.
Can you start from the Smalltalk side? Do you actually run Smalltalk?
Yeah, you run Smalltalk and then yeah, debug it, you mean? Yeah, you sure you can? That's
I mean, can you start from the Smalltalk side and move towards the JavaScript side?
So, maybe I'm not hearing it quite the question. Can you
start from the Smalltalk?
Yeah, and then call JavaScript.
How you progress from Smalltalk to the JavaScript?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you can. Yeah, exactly. You're looking right now at this code. So if you call this Smalltalk method, then it calls this JavaScript code. So
I mean, where is the Smalltalk IDE?
Yeah. Nee, that's this system doesn't work from. It uses a visual file-based IDE. So in this case, Visual Studio Code. You can use any other file-based IDE. I did not integrate it into, for example, Faro or something to run from that IDE. So in that sense, it's different from, let's say, Code Paradise from Eric or from Faro.js.
Okay, question. The file integer.st, was that created by hand?
Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
So you created by hand.
Yeah. It is, and it is. That's also a difference. In my language, this is curated. It is. I don't have an automatic interface for it. It could be done easily. There's also a perform method is implemented, so I can perform any JavaScript function, but I consciously chose not to do that because then all your code is perform something. I really made a conscious decision to re-implement these. Yeah, make Smalltalk classes for everything and also see if it works nice and if it looks nice. So at some point I deviated from the JavaScript methods. For example, for the number hierarchy, I just recreated the Smalltalk hierarchy in the Smalltalk hierarchy translating to JavaScript. So that requires hand coding, as you are looking at right now.
Can you show how you debug something, if you
Yes,
can? Do you have source maps or something?
Yeah, I do have source maps, yes. So it is, well, let's first show how to debug. So let's say, okay, here some functions and say add new task, say here, I want to break here. When add new task is called, going to my run thing. I'm not going to do the automated testing now, but just start it up normally. And start it. And then, yeah, you see here the normal functionality. I just do some other things here. And if I press the add button, then you see it breaks here in the Visual Studio Code. I'm now here. And you can see the variable task, which has the same name, is a Smalltalk task. I use the st prefix to differentiate from JavaScript. And it contains a Smalltalk boolean, a Smalltalk date, and a Smalltalk string. And the values you can see here. You can actually make it look a bit more nice and to really only display, for example, an st string with only this thing. But for now, I find it quite okay to see the difference between Smalltalk and JavaScript. But you can even make it a bit more integrated maybe later on.
But is the st date something you added?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, the stdate, that is the date class. If we go back to here.
But
is
when
this
you
one?
compile it as stdate.
Yeah, yeah. So this is you say if you Smalltalk, you use the class name date, but it transpiles to stdate because you don't want to clash with anything JavaScript. So
Perfect.
so yeah, here you are. Yeah, we're still here. Yeah, yeah. You can see here now. You have oh yeah, go back to the debugger, I think. Yeah, you can see this variable, and you can also see this, which is self. This is the to-do app itself, and then also oh yeah, the instance variables.
So the stack, is the stack a JavaScript stack or
Yes.
Smalltalk stack? Is a JavaScript
It's
stack.
actually because I transpile to functional normal JavaScript, they are the same. So indeed, here's the stack, and you can just click on it and say, okay, you see here's some Smalltalk code, and actually, yeah, I think because I use the source map, it now only shows me Smalltalk code, but if I'm broken in some JavaScript code, it also intermingles here JavaScript. And so if your Smalltalk code calls a JavaScript library something and something goes wrong, then there's an exception from that library, for example, Postgres database, some validation error. Then you can also immediately debug that JavaScript if you have the knowledge.
So you have written a sort of a virtual machine that does the transpiling, is that right?
Yeah, I would maybe not call it a virtual machine, but a transpiler, yes.
Transpiler.
And maybe it also helps to show a bit of the JavaScript. So here.
And can you show us the code for the transpiler?
Yes. Of the transpiler itself. Yeah, I can certainly do that. Maybe first here is this is a standard web folder where you have your HTML index and your icon. This is just standard web development. You don't have to do anything special here. This is the transpiled code. These are the classes. These are
the transpiler itself.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting to that in the meantime,
Okay.
but because I'm on this screen,
this is the output.
Yeah, this is the output of the transpiler. I know. I will get to it in a minute. And here you see transpiled code, not the transpiler itself. And you see, oh yeah, it uses ECMAScript 6 ECMAScript modules. That took a bit of effort to get right with importing and exporting because it's specific about the ordering of classes, and you cannot inherit from between modules, not multiply. And then here, for example, a task. This is the task object, and now this generates automatically. Put them to the nil value, the Smalltalk nil value. What's my class name? This is generated. This is also generated. Constructor is actually something I can implement in myself in the source code. And here, these are just getters and setters for the getter for the title and the setter for the title of the task. You see, there's a bit of size here to prevent.
You can call super on a class side constructor.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, the super keyword is implemented, which was nice because it works the same in JavaScript, so I could actually just reuse that. So
nice.
Yeah, and then here, here's some logic. Maybe last thing we look at here is the Jew string. Let me help you here. What was it again? Oh yeah, if it is nil, then it's an empty string. Okay, yeah. So if this Jew is nil in JavaScript code, then I render if true, if false on this block.
Now this file is automatically generated.
Yes, it's automatically. So you normally don't look at this because the browser, the debugger skips this if you have source maps on. Then you
what was the input for todo.js?
Is task.st. The class we were just looking at was task.st. So the thing you were just looking at, it was this.
Okay. And then what's the program that digests this to produce the other one?
Yeah, then the compiler itself, yeah, I can show it. It's also, of course, open source in the thing. Yeah, the compiler is written, yeah, in the not so bad language called TypeScript. And yeah, this is it. Yeah, this is just a TypeScript
TypeScript.
compiler. And yeah, it's, if people know compilers, it's a recursive descent compiler. And so it doesn't use too many dependencies. It just compiles, it traverses the hierarchy and the priority of messaging directly, and then directly generates the source code, more or less. It could not be done in all cases. One good thing was when I use source maps, you have to use something called source nodes to build up your source tree. So that actually helped me a little bit in having a sort of poor man's abstract syntax tree. If you, I think here, look at the method.
So the transpiler transpiles. Now, where does the interpreter, I mean, when you debug, when the debugger stops at the Smalltalk code,
Yeah.
the debugger stops at the Smalltalk code, right?
A JavaScript VM, and it maps the position to the source code of Smalltalk using the source maps. Maybe you can show a source map file. So
Yeah.
we can
Yeah, I will have to get it because once the application is compiled, this line you saw, then this program doesn't run anymore. This program is gone. So it's not like nothing like a VM or something. And you're absolutely right, Esteban. I think you were saying it. Let's go back here. We have here this to-do JS, which we're just looking at. Next to it is a to-do JS.map. Well, this looks very ugly, but can you make it out? It says, okay, this is the source file. It's actually because it's encoded in a way that uses little letters. And then, can you see the file? Oh yeah, here, yeah, it's places where I want it here.
I see. This maps the JavaScript to the ST file.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, indeed.
Okay.
And then it maybe, okay, it doesn't mention the name of the JavaScript file. It just automatically assumes that because of the name of the map file, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
But
Now,
it does
is the
mention
map
the name
file
of the
in
source
your
file.
invention?
So these two source files, the task object and the task app, are mapped to this combined JavaScript, I also call it the module file. And the mapping from the lines of these two files here on top are to the to-do.js file somewhere in that file.
Is
No,
the .map file your invention?
No. This is
it's a common artifact
feature which is available in all browsers, and it can map any, as they call scripting language, to
JavaScript.
To JavaScript, because they probably knew it was not the most beautiful language. So there's, people will know Clojure, for example, top of my head. Clojure is one.
Even if you minify your JavaScript source code, you can debug it or just have a nice source map. So it's not just for transpilation, even just
indeed, it's also for minifying, and then if you
what's the official name of this map file?
Source maps.
Source map. Okay.
Source map. If you Google on npm source map, then you will get to the module that does the thing, and also it will probably point you to some documentation how this encoding works. But
and specifically designed for JavaScript.
Yeah, it's specifically designed to map other
JavaScript
languages to JavaScript, or as I don't know who said it was JavaScript to JavaScript if one is minified. I actually didn't try out the minifying yet because don't bother. But if you minify and transpile Smalltalk to JavaScript and you have two layers, I think that is supposed to be supported. I didn't find out yet. Didn't try it yet. Okay. Are there any other questions?
Okay, how was the source map created?
It is an npm package, a JavaScript package called source map, and then you
Show me the input of that. Thank you very much for answering my question. This is all new and very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Happy to do it.
Input of that.
Maybe I can just give you the code, top level code. This is the top level compiler, and somewhere it here says generate source maps. And the compiler works well, so I don't have to don't have to look at this code very often.
Was it generate metadata?
To generate metadata.
Yeah,
on every source node you can have some kind of identifier, and that identifier can be the method name. Yeah, sure. But also even in more detail, you can say not only this is a method, but also this is an integer or this is a string. Yeah. This info can be done into the source maps, and it can probably help you also to debug, to create a more nicer looking debugger. Generate modules. Source maps is on the module level. Yeah. Okay. Is it here? Generate source tree. So yeah, here I got it. So this is actually I have built up a source tree, which is just like an abstract syntax tree with all the generated JavaScript and the lines of the source maps in it. And on an object that's called a source node. That's the type of this root node. And then I just say two strings with source map, and then it generates the one generated JavaScript consecutive text plus the source map generated pointing to it.
I guess, what is the input to something that generates the dot map?
Input is or something that generates the
dot map. Yeah.
Dot map. Yeah, there's a tree of source nodes. And a tree of source nodes, and we can go to, for example, the type definition of a source node. Yeah. So a source node has more source nodes as children, or it has some source string, which is then actually the JavaScript generated JavaScript, and it has a name, which could be, for example, the method name. And the line number is the line number from the original Smalltalk it points to.
It's pretty much like you can think of it as an abstract syntax tree, and you have like a whole tree, and you can just do stuff with that, like output the source.
Okay, you have a smalltalk.st file, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That .st file gets transpiled to two files. One will be a .js and the other one will be a .map, correct?
Yes, that's true.
Okay. And the conversion to .map, you must do some programming, correct?
Like I said, the source maps are a standard feature, so I use an existing library that can do that for me. So, but the compiler, when it parses the Smalltalk, it generates these source nodes we were just looking at.
I mean, somebody has already written something that converts .st to .map?
Somebody has written something that converts source nodes to .map, and that's also the
Okay,
hard
so
part
you need
because
to
it's
convert.
encoded. But my compiler builds up the source node tree, like the
All right.
abstract syntax tree.
You had to write a program to convert .st to source node.
Yeah, that's
okay.
it. That is what the compiler does, actually. Yeah.
Can you show me that program?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, piss off.
So I really want to know all the steps that goes from.
Yeah, maybe indeed we're getting a bit off the small talk, yeah? So let's not dwell on this too long, but just to have you, so we have, for example, the class compiler which we used, and then for example, compile literal. Any literal small talk. Is it nil, true or false?
So that's your programming. Yeah.
Source code. Yeah, this is my program. Yeah, this is the compiler. Okay. But indeed, let's stop with this project and then with this subject. Sorry, and then let's do something else. And I really closed the presentation. That's not the intention.
Sorry, Richard. I don't know if that's part of the presentation, but can you show how you bridge between SmallJS and like some native JavaScript classes or libraries?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Not now. Maybe you can do it at the end. I just wanted to know if.
Yeah, but I think we're kind of at the end here. Here's the presentation. Okay, we can switch to reading mode. It's a bit nicer. It's going to be full screen. These are the examples. If you, for example, would say bridge to JavaScript code, I would, for example, choose the database code. This to-do list doesn't have a database, but there's also a web shop example to which uses the database. Here you can see the supported databases, and well, let's do SQLite is the most recently added one, and let's say SQLite database.st.
Okay, you wrap it manually, so.
Yeah, I wrap it manually because I want the small talk to be nice. I don't do just get me all the properties of some JavaScript library. I want to curate it, want it to be nice, and to call JavaScript, I just put in the keyword inline here in capitals so that it doesn't clash with any small talk thing. And just create a new database sync with a path and options. And here the path and the options are small talk objects, but they have like every object or most objects have a standard sub field called JS, which actually contains the JavaScript thing it encapsulates.
Nice. And JS is just a way to execute JavaScript that solves JS.
It's a member variable. So path here is a string. So this is a small talk string. It's from the point of view of JavaScript, the class of this is st string, and it has one property called JS, and that actually contains the JavaScript string.
He was asking about at the beginning of that line, self.js.
Yes, the first method stand there.
Oh yeah. So this is so this that's a good one. Can I say it? Yeah, here. This. Okay, so this SQLite databases inherits from an SQL database, but actually this SQL database inherits from a class named JS object. I can show it here. That's one of the really basic, most used things in the system. Not in the browser, but in the core.
It is there, JS object.
It's there, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, this is JS objects, which inherits from object. That is, you will of course all know the base class of everything. But JS object has one variable, very important one, it's called JS. And this abstract class, everything that contains a JavaScript object inside, which is also strings, dates, numbers, fractions, booleans, etc., inherits from this class called JS object. And we were just looking at the message called JS. Well, this just sets the JS property if you have a JS data somewhere already. And normally you don't use this because this is really a JavaScript object and not a small talk object. But for low-level libraries, this is kind of way to access the internal JS variable of an object that encapsulates a JavaScript object called JS
So
object.
it is the subject of the wrapper. The wrappee.
A wrapper, yeah. What do you say?
I mean, you have the Smalltalk object that, like for instance, the SQLite database.
Yeah.
That is wrapping a JavaScript object, and the JS property is the object, the JavaScript object that's being wrapped.
Yeah, and wrapping means just inheritance. It just inherits from it. It just it also uses same JavaScript inheritance to inherit from this class. And yeah, as we all know from Smalltalk, we then get this member variable for free with all the functionality behind it, and we can use access, for example, from the SQLite access the JS property. And that's the power of inheritance. And if we go back, we probably never want to bother about it. And here we have some functionality in the SQLite database class, which only is SQLite database specific. For example, if I want to open, this is simply a pass-through to the this JS open. So this doesn't do anything extra. And you will see a lot of those lines here in the standard library. But if I want to do something special here and make it nicer, then I can put in more code here. But this is the default, just calling the same function on the encapsulated object. Are there any other questions or requests for demos in the?
Can you show one of the advanced demos, and are they available on your website?
They are on the website. They're only all the browser examples are available because I don't have any backend running. It's maybe a cheap decision at this point. It could be well done, but I just didn't bother yet. But if you just get the repository, then you can just build all the examples and run them yourself.
Right.
And the code, maybe I didn't mention it. It's multi-platform, so it runs on Linux and Mac also. And you see I'm running here on Windows because of history. But I do have actually in the closet behind me a Mac book which I borrowed from work actually, and a Linux which for myself, which I regression test my system on. So before I release something, I run the full regression test of everything, all the unit tests and all the GUI tests, and I also make sure that they run on Mac and Linux. So if you have that, you can for yourself run these codes. Oh yeah, one caveat is the Node GUI. The library on ARM Max is not supported well. So, and I put in a pull request and I put in a reminder to the maintainer, but he is not fast. So,
darn. Can you show us that one?
The Node GUI one? Yeah, sure. No problem. SmallJS examples Node GUI. So I don't have to start a web server for it, but just terminate this one because this web server was bound to the Node application. Yeah, Node GUI, because maybe words in advance, we all maybe know Electron, but Electron is very big because with an Electron app, you run a Node backend and also a browser in the same application. So like the minimum is like 500 megabytes to run the Hello World application. And Node GUI uses runs on Node on the backend and uses the Qt library, which is actually a very nice GUI library, which is also a multi-platform. So yeah, let's see if it works. Let's not run it in test mode because then it will close automatically. But run it like this. Okay, pressing the run button. You again see that it compiles all the Smalltalk things in like a second. So quite amazed actually that JavaScript is so fast in compiling. And then,
how many lines of code is this?
I don't know exactly. I will put it up later. Yeah, okay. Takes a while because there's some libraries to load. It's all, yeah, you can see this is a simple file. So, but this is now, yeah, a Node GUI desktop application. If I can get it here, yeah. You see, this is just a desktop application, and I just put in some simple things here, and here's a button to change the style of this. This is actually the only functionality here next to the exit option. You can also see this is a standard, you call it native menu. So it's not a, it's a native Windows menu, and on the Mac it will be a native Mac menu. So that's the style in which the Qt library works. So now it's exited. Let's look at the code. You see here the same source tree here. And well, we wanted to know how many lines of code it was. It is 106 if you, but counting also empty lines and lines with one closing bang on it. So this is actually it. It's not more than this.
All right. Is this all that a user needs to write?
Yes, it is. Except I'll show you this because I have to have some JavaScript entry point. So what I do here, this is my main thing. I say, okay, call my generated, my transcompiled Smalltalk code, and from this module run the st my GUI app class. This is just a naming mangling that the transpiler does from the class. Call method new, call method start. This is the only JavaScript line you have to write to start up any application. And then you just have to write these 100 lines to make this application you just saw.
Okay.
And yeah, so here yeah, are some nested icons actually. Here you have an icon, a style sheet, a menu bar, and a file exit menu. Oh yeah, and there are some widgets which are centralized in the main.
Now, this
window.
code cannot be coded in live debugging, can it?
Yeah, sure it can. For example,
how do you do live debugging here?
Yeah, live debugging. Well, let's say, where's this button? On button something. Actually, where can I not find it?
Control F.
Yeah, and you add action. Oh yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. Well, yeah. It's one thing that's actually missing in my code yet is debugging within blocks. This is the main thing to do thing. Also, JavaScript is not handling, so I cannot put a breakpoint here at this moment. So that's too bad. So I cannot do it. This is one of the major things to do still. But what I can do is to show it is put a breakpoint on the file exit, because that's on a separate line. No, but I'm saying it wrong. The change style. Where is the? Oh yeah, change style button. Okay, self change style. Oh, sorry. Yeah, but this change style is on a separate thing. So let's do that one. Start it again. And let's change the style. And then boom, I'm in the debugger here. And I'm seeing, yeah, the Smalltalk objects with the naming convention in the Visual Studio Code with the JavaScript dialect. Yeah, you can, for example, see here the change style button. It's a Smalltalk Qt push button, but it actually contains a Qt QPushButton class. This is the JavaScript class which it encapsulates.
So if I decide, I want to add a new line of some extra code, can I do it here and then continue?
That hot loading is not supported yet.
So
it could be done, I think, because it just runs in because you could do that in JavaScript, so you can also do it in SmallJS, but let's say it's not supported. I must say I didn't find the need for it also very much, because if you do something by hand and you create a different state, if I just want to add something here, I just change something here and press the run button again, and it compiles within a second the whole Smalltalk library. So the wait is not long. If I say here self log style changed dot. Okay, I say, well, okay, that's good. Now run it again with the with this thing. I'm wondering actually, my breakpoint is still there. No, breakpoint is gone, but it now says style has changed. So you see my change.
But basically it started from scratch though, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I started from scratch, but it was quick. That was what I wanted to show. So maybe I'll undo this change, because then it will go into the next release otherwise. So, are there any other questions or requests?
Richard, one question which I had was, let's say I want to use an existing JavaScript library, let's say a graphing library or something like that.
Yeah.
How easily can we expose the functions or the API from that library?
Yeah, easy, I would say. Yeah, so I'm going to share again. Screen. Yeah, that's what I wanted to show with the database wrapper, for example, or maybe the canvas is a nice example, because it's got a lot of small functions. Let's see, browser, HTML element, and then I think maybe I put in a separate. I put it in something separate. I cannot. No, but HTML canvas element is not. Oh, here, yeah, here it is. In front of my nose, as they say in Holland. So these are the. This is the full implementation of the JavaScript, the DOM Canvas 2D API, and let's say I have a. Now, what would be a good one to check? Maybe the main one is the HTML canvas element.
Yeah.
Here you see some wrapping, and yeah, you see a lot of these lines. I was thinking about maybe automating it with a script, but then again, I just when I make a new library, I just started copy pasting lines, so automating is not, and I want to make it nice. For example, group the methods into something, which would be the equivalent of a Smalltalk category. But then you just say, okay, this is a JavaScript thing I want to expose. Just make a getter for it, and it converts to the Smalltalk object's integer, and in the setter it just accesses the JavaScript.
So you're creating these wrappers manually.
Yeah.
But presumably you could just write the line of code with your inline call.
Yeah.
Anywhere in Smalltalk and invoke a function on that JavaScript library.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't have to really make it a separate library, just to make it nicer. But,
unless you want to make it prettier.
yeah, indeed. So I would kind of recommend just if you want to make a wrapper library, just wrap that library in a nice class. That works also the way you want to work. and then the user of this library doesn't get confronted with JavaScript.
Okay, thank you.
Richard, can you explain, like, I'm seeing like this HTML canvas element extends HTML element, but the module says browser, but you're within the canvas folder in there. How does the modules work?
The module is actually, it's just the name of the JavaScript file that is generated.
Okay.
So if you, and so
it's more like a package.
Everything from the DOM I generate into this browser.js file, and you can see it in the project output file here. So it's like
missing.
Oh. Am I
in the browser?
Yeah, okay, that's because the project I have open now is Node GUI. Okay, yeah, so this doesn't generate the browser object. So I'm looking into the Smalltalk image, but it doesn't. But for example, the core image, it's all basic Smalltalk stuff is going into the core JS library. It is also quite a big file. Then let's check how much.
But the folder
this
structure
is
it's just.
Yeah.
It's just a convention. I mean, you can have a file within a different folder that gets compiled into a module of your choice. There's no, I mean, it's more like a convention. It's not something that's enforced.
Exactly. Yeah, I just say the hierarchy here is totally not important. It's also if things get complexer, I just make a deeper hierarchy. But it is not. It's not something like namespaces. It totally doesn't matter if I drag this file to somewhere else in this hierarchy, it doesn't matter. If I drag it outside of this browser folder, then it does matter a bit, because that's also maybe a nice thing to show. How do you compile it? Tasks I have to see. So how the transpiler is called, that's by this line. It just calls the compiler, and it calls it compiles all the Smalltalk files within this folder. So this is how I can differentiate from browser project, Node GUI projects in this case, or Node projects. So I do have to have, well, let's say keep all number related stuff in the core library. That would be a requirement. But within that folder, you can make as many subfolders as you like. Yeah, I also find it actually quite a nice feature that you can say, let's say Node AI, new one. Okay, you have DeepSeek, OpenAI, and some general AI base class. Here I can just go deeper. Yeah, and a standard also convention is that I put the test folder right here also. And so DeepSeek test object. Wait, is actually not so interesting.
Can you open that?
I'm going to, yeah. DeepSeek is almost the same as OpenAI, so I'm going to show you the OpenAI thing, because DeepSeek just inherits from OpenAI, and then we're more or less done. So it's not so interesting. But it is this is the unit test for the OpenAI stuff. So what am I doing here? First, I check if the OpenAI is available, if there's a API key set for it. Well, if it does, then I create a chat completion request. Yeah, you have to know the AI lingo. This is more or less a mirror of the. Oh, somebody is drawing on my screen. Of the nomenclature that the AI people use. And then I say here, oh yeah, it's an async request. So I do the request and I say, okay, if it's done, then I got a chat completion, and I just call my on chat completion methods with the chat completion, like standard Smalltalk stuff. And then here I say, okay, this chat completion, the class name must be this, the date must be less than 60 seconds old, and etc., 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 etc. I test all the little fields that OpenAI gives you if you put in a request. So here I know that my wrapper of ChatGPT OpenAI works.
Yeah, you mentioned something, and I was going to ask you about that. You have that method that's create chat completion then, and is that some synchronous thing, or it's just just a selector with 2 keywords that you chose?
This is an async thing. If you know JavaScript, you know that everything is handled with promises now, more or less. So this in JavaScript, this actually chat completion request returns a promise. My personal choice is to get rid of promises as soon as possible. So if something returns a promise, I implement it with then right next to it, so not to get confused. But if you like promises, they are also implemented in the system. So there's actually a wrapper for promise class.
You have promises in a SmallJS as well.
Yeah.
Nice.
And and there's also, if you know JavaScript, async await. I did actually also implement that as separate keywords because I could not get around it abstracted away in Smalltalk. So you can actually do also async await in this in the Smalltalk code in the dialect, but I would personally not recommend it. I would recommend just doing a then called the then option right away to not get confused.
Robert, since you have a wrapper or a structure for using what is that one? The browser-based app.
Yeah, the to-do app.
Electron. Since you have a wrapper for Electron.
Yes.
How difficult will it be to create a interface for React and its JSX elements?
Oh yeah, well, it's in structure not difficult at all. You can just implement the whole React component system. But I personally made it is a lot of methods. Oh yeah, sorry, and I have to say, sorry, JSX, that is, sorry. JSX has JavaScript and HTML merged into the same file. So yeah, I think you would have to treat that as JSX, because JSX will give a JavaScript output, I think. So that will be your module file, and then you create a Smalltalk wrapper on top of that. So you interface the Smalltalk to the compiled JSX. I don't know how pretty that is, compiled JSX. But I must say, I do not recommend it. I just have a very simple component system which just associates some Smalltalk class with a piece of HTML and a piece of CSS, and that's it. That's actually what's used in the shop single page application. And that saves you like thousands React concepts and 100 React concepts and 1,000 library calls, which are specific. And like use state and use side effect. Yeah, I don't know if you have experience with React, but to do simple things, you have to make it complicated in React. And I just scrap that and just do the simple things.
And when you compile everything, now speaking about the hell of dealing with thousands of files, what do you use to pack everything together? Do you use anything, or it's just like a plain JavaScript file?
I do not pack anything yet, but there's certainly the option of doing the minimizer, but I just didn't do it yet because I didn't feel the need for it. For example, this was this was the Node.js project. Okay, this uses produces these output files. Yeah, you could use a minimizer to put it into one big file. Probably if you want to deploy it as a Node.js application, you want to do that, but yeah, I didn't do it yet. But there's no reason it couldn't be done, because this is just plain JavaScript. So yeah, the minimizer can handle this.
Richard, a different question. If you were going to use a C-side backend, what sort of protocol is going to go between your browser client and C-side? Is that going to be what, a REST call, or how do you do that interaction?
Yeah, so yeah, let me which one is best for that? Maybe do the Faro interface, I guess. I made a little, it's really simple, but it illustrates the point. It's kind of fun. Oh yeah, because maybe there's some Faro fans here. First there's the Faro server, which I can start with start server. Oh yeah, not start server.st. No. With Faro.
With the Pharaoh image at the top.
Yeah, but oh yeah, here now I do it via the
shell. Okay.
Shell bash script. I was looking for the Windows equivalent. But
yeah. Okay.
Let me see if this is going to work. Yeah. So this is a Faro instance, which is got a very small JS server in it. And it just uses the Zinc file server. I don't know if does Seaside do the same or
Seaside does use Zinc, but you don't use it directly in your application. You use a wrapper which Seaside provides to talk to the browser objects.
Yeah, and that is what I don't do. So let's say because the client is very simple, I just keep them separate and just communicate through normal APIs. So if I go to the Faro client here, then you will just see something really simple. And it's just a standard website with the files that are here. Typically, SmallJS app works like this. Start method calls binds element, which binds the DOM elements to Smalltalk variables. And then it's just the stuff like say hello. So the interface to the backend here is actually this function. It just sends the /hello to the server and then gets a message back.
Okay, so you basically invent your own protocol. You send whatever you want back and forth.
Yeah, well, invention is maybe a big word. I just use the standard API call, and I don't use any HTML generation.
Okay, what does it look like on the Pharaoh side? You've got to create an endpoint there, obviously.
Yeah. So the endpoint Faro is here, and yeah, this is just a simple. Let me see. The web folder. Oh yeah. This is just that it gets the right web files because it also serves the web file. I can run the example later, but it needs to also be a static file server. This is just for starting and stopping the Zinc the thing, and this is actually the. Let me see. Handle request. No, okay. This is the transcript. Yeah, okay. So if I get here an on hello, so the /hello API has been called, then I create the Zinc response with the Zinc entity string JSON and then answer back hello from Faro.
Okay, that SmallJS server, what does that inherit from?
No, good question. From nothing, from object. So this just uses Zinc parts.
Okay, so it creates a ZN server in a slot by the looks of it.
Yeah, actually, the ZN server is a global variable and it reuses that. So it doesn't contain the variable. So I left it there. Yeah, I didn't want to make this more complicated than necessary.
So it's extremely lightweight. In other words, it's just when you get a message, pass it to a method, and that's it.
But the idea here was not to make it the biggest Flower.js server application, because you already know how to do this. So you can expand this as much as you want. It's the simplest possible, indeed. And
Yeah.
just say, yeah, if you want to do it the SmallJS way to call it, then you just in a traditional way and use API calls. You can just, for the fun of it, see if it works.
Do you have
the Zinc
support
server
for WebSockets?
work very reliable. Oh yeah, it does work, and it's in test mode, so it will close automatically also. Yeah.
Thank you.
Richard, do you have support of, I mean, did you wrap the WebSockets in the SmallJS?
Not yet.
Do we have webs? Okay.
Not yet. No, it's one of the things. Yeah, no, it's one of the things that certainly could be added, but it's not at the moment. But we are free to put in any pull requests. And it's
Oh yes.
If you make an app that uses it, I'm very happy to receive it. So,
Yep.
Yeah, but I didn't need it for the examples that are here now still. Any more? Yeah. Benchmark web workers. Yeah, I could say something about performance. Just the web workers. Well, maybe I won't show it, but that's that you can actually find out how many cores you have in your CPU, because after a certain point, adding more web workers doesn't doesn't help anymore, and it uses in total more or less the same processing time. With the benchmark, that is maybe kind of fun, but it also gives a bit of criticism of SmallJS. Oh yeah, I have to start a static web server for it. Can be anyone, but I use the Node.js one. Oh, okay, and I didn't do it because maybe this one is keeping open. Open direction. Let's close this one. I have something open, or maybe, yeah, now it starts the web server. And if I do the benchmark, also compiles within a second. Starting up is a bit longer. Okay, so it's in test mode. Oh yeah, it's in test mode. Yeah, then it will also maybe disappear now. No, it won't disappear. Okay. I see why not, but now it's handy. Here you see hand-coded JavaScript, and here you see hand-coded Smalltalk. Well, if you work with big numbers, these are the bottom two, then you have, yeah, it's more or less equivalent. Once you use big ints, it doesn't matter if every number that you have is wrapped in a little Smalltalk class. If you have prime numbers, then the factor slowness is 400. Yeah, this is a bit skewed, I think, because it is on the millisecond, but to generate 20,000 primes, then JavaScript has the amazing optimization of compiling handwritten JavaScript to generate 20,000 primes in a millisecond. Yeah, and for every calculation, it has to go through some method calls on my side, so it cannot optimize that away. The takeaway I have from this is also, yeah, if you want really performant code, it would probably be wise to make some hand-coded JavaScript in the bottom. But for all other things, for all administration, it is easy to use.
They've probably got just a big array of prime numbers for benchmark purposes.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Okay.
So yeah, I think we covered most things now. Web first Faro. Yeah, we covered the advanced thing and the counter. Yeah, the counter is too simple. Yeah, the balls. Some, yeah, maybe now to be complete then, if your patience is still there. The balls are just nice to show, bouncing balls. Oh yeah, I have to stop this web server that's connected to the other application and start it a web server that's connected to the balls application. Okay, I have a lot open now. See if it works right away. And then again, compiling is in a second, but starting up takes a little longer. No. Oh yeah, test mode again. So it will automatically stop. Let's say not test mode and not Firefox, but Chrome. Oh, it had a breakpoint set there. Well, skip it. Nah, let's say you want some more example, 50 balls. Yeah, it's quite okay also to make animations. This is it's not CPU bound at this moment, so you can certainly make some animations with it. And then last but not least is the shopping example. Wait, let's stop the server here. It's got a regular client and a single page application client and a server. So, well, let's first do the regular client. I just start the server here, which starts a web server, but it also starts a database backend server, which it can run shop items. And then start up the client project. Let's learn from it. Yeah, not go into test mode right away. Let's just do the usual. So, John, I named it after you. Just logged in. Login. This actually also stores made some classes to store a hashed password in the database to do it nice. Yeah, and this is not actually a web shop. It just displays some products and it displays some orders of these projects, of this simple projects. But the thing here is they are going to they are coming from the database, and this works from the 4 supported databases: SQLite, Postgres, MariaDB, and MySQL. And if you see here, this URL here is now order. And if I click here on products, you see this URL change to products. So it loads a new web page for this thing. And if I close this now, close this project, and I go to the single page application client, and I go to not test mode and not Firefox, but Chrome. Then log in. Yeah, I think this is actually a separate page by design, but it looks exactly the same. I log in. Oh, oh yeah, no, it still is exactly the same as it did before, because the server, yeah, the server is on the wrong on the wrong source code. Yeah, so I have to stop the server, which is this is the server for the client without single page application. So I have to stop this. Go, and I'm now in the folder client server page single page application, and I start the server here. Now I can see it's in this folder, client SPA. So now things should go better. Oh, yeah. Same breakpoint here, something. Oh, more breakpoints even. Well, oh, yeah. Just refactored something here. Is it? Yeah, I think we're here. Log in. Oh yeah, and now you see this URL here is localhost. It stays on localhost. And I'm now in products. If I go to order, it stays on localhost. And if I go back to products, it also stays on localhost. So it's a single page application which can retain all its state if you want. So I think that was about all I can show. If there are any more questions?
Richard?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, first of all, this is very impressive. But I have two questions. What did you use to create your GUIs, and how long did this take you?
Sorry, what you used to create my what? My billies?
The user interfaces.
Yeah.
The GUI. Oh, yeah, I just used Visual Studio Code. It's actually hand-coded HTML. But the advantage of this setup is you can use any advanced tools. But I actually just use Visual Studio Code and the preview mode that it has built in. It's super easy. So let's say, well, the client's single page. Yeah, I think maybe for the web components. Yeah, well, actually, this is kind of also maybe a criticism of things.
You need to share your screen.
Oh yeah, I'm not sharing my screen anymore. Yeah, sorry. I'm going to share it again. Yeah, let's go to login. Yeah, this is just some basic HTML because I wanted to keep it minimal and keep it nice. And Visual Studio Code has this nice thing. Okay, yeah, which does it a little bit. Yeah, you see, it doesn't give here the nice, the full view of it because it is a single page application. But if I do the other one, it also gives the correct layout. But yeah, but the takeaway is you can use any HTML editor to do this because it's not opinionated about the HTML you use. Sorry, did it say go? HTML. So if you have advanced tools, I don't know, Figma or something can generate full HTML from a GUI design, you could use it for this certainly.
Richard, if you remove the path login from the style sheet on the top, will it then use the style sheet as well? If you just have login.css instead of login/login.css?
No, because this is actually the correct name, because it points to this file. But
it's in the same directory. So
right. That's a good one. Well,
wouldn't Visual Studio maybe?
Yeah, you're right. It does a bit more now. Yeah. So maybe you'll find a bug, Eric. Thank you. And then now it uses the login CSS, but it doesn't use the base class. So it uses only the styling specific for the login screen, but it also has a base class, which is something called the default CSS. And where is that? No, I didn't do it with an import. Yeah, don't touch on. I'll get back on it, but this is a good tip indeed. So. But normally, certainly, if you have a single page, then it will just show the full correct style. And it even fills in magically some JavaScript data you have compiled to it. And that's how Visual Studio Code does that heuristically. So, but again, you can use any HTML tool you want.
And how long have you worked on this?
Yeah, I think I'm about going on to the second year now. So yeah. So yeah.
Very impressive.
Third. Yeah. It is quite. Yeah, I must say I was hesitating a little bit. I tried first. Rewriting Small World. That's the Java equivalent of Little Smalltalk. That's a traditional image-based thing, but then I thought, no, I have to start from scratch. And I did do this, and yeah, for me it was nice to come together all the programming experiences you had. It come together in writing a debugger, writing a compiler, writing a GUI, doing something with HTML. It all came together to do it quite productively and still having a job. So. Okay.
Now, does SmallJS have its own Smalltalk VM that it runs on top of?
No. So it does not. It uses the JavaScript VM. It just, as mentioned, it compiles just standard JavaScript. If I say here, and there must be a script directory here. Yes, here it is. And here you again see the transpiled JavaScript code. And this is actually what runs, and it runs normally with the VM that's available for JavaScript. So it could be your mobile phone or your PC browser, or it could be a Node.js backend running on a server, for example.
And so the object model is strictly the JavaScript object model.
Yeah.
So in a sense, this is like TypeScript in that it's transpiled to JavaScript. Okay.
Indeed, yeah. And also again, but you can see that it uses readable. This is readable JavaScript code, in my opinion. It uses also just ECMAScript 6 features, class names, modules, imports, and yeah, it was quite I was quite relieved when I started. I didn't know if it would be possible maybe I would run into problems and I would have to make some kind of bytecode compilation on top of it, for example. But to my surprise, every feature of Smalltalk could be implemented more or less directly into JavaScript. One or two exceptions, which I had to do some stuff, but it's more or less straightforward JavaScript, and I think that helps so in the debugging. In the starting phase, I didn't have the source maps yet, so debugging was always done in JavaScript in this mode. So, but now the source maps are very nice to use.
Very nice, Richard. Could you show how you do non-local returns?
Yeah, you're actually, it's a good one, Dave. That is the clutch I was just talking about, was exactly that, yeah. Yes, I can. This was one of the clutch. Let's see if I, yeah, you see the first include here is block return. This is a piece of JavaScript which is not Smalltalk transpiled. This is and can you oh yeah, okay, now but what I do is I have to think of an example. I throw an exception. So the compiler actually checks if there's a return from a block, and JavaScript does not have a method to go to the end of the function like Smalltalk does. So what I do is throw an exception and I check if it's a block return type. If it is, then I just return the value, and if it's not, I rethrow the exception because then something went wrong.
And what about nested, like a block return from within something that has a block return?
Yeah, that was I was talking about actually just yet. So block return. What were you asked? What was your first question then, which I maybe missed?
Well, if you have basically if there's multiple block returns waiting, multiple exceptions waiting, how do you recognize the particular one that?
Because they're nested. Also in the code, blocks are nested, so I can catch on a. No, sorry. No, the working of Smalltalk is in a way that it returns from the method. It just doesn't return from the block.
Yes.
It returns from the method. So I only have one catch all on the end of the method. So I can, if there are nested blocks, I can just throw this block.
No, not nested blocks. Nested methods that all have.
Okay, yeah,
blocker.
that's no problem. So the catch is on the method level. The compiler actually recognizes, hey, is this a method which has returned from a block? There's a variable in the compiler called hasBlockReturn, true or false. And if it's true, then it generates this catch of the block return value. But it is actually a JavaScript methods. So if there are nested JavaScript methods, I just generate it for each method. I can use the JavaScript functionality.
Perhaps we should talk offline, but you might want to look at how Pharaoh.js does this, because what I see in front of me doesn't look like it will solve the problem accurately in some cases. So
yeah, okay. If you well, give me a tip on what doesn't work, then it will be good. But yes, shall I?
Unfortunately, I need to go, but
yeah,
it's very interesting. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, it's quite tricky to get it completely right in all the cases. So
here you see some code which has a throw block return. This is a function that has a return from a block.
Mm-hmm.
And then here it is, and it is, well, if it's returning from the block, if this is true, then it just throws the block return. And here on the end of the function, it catches the block return. If it's a block return, then just return the value. If not, then rethrow the exception. That's how it works now.
Yes. Okay. So you're missing something, but I'll talk to you offline.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. Any more questions for Richard?
No, I have to go as well, but I would like to say, Richard, very impressive, and thank you. It was very, very interesting. And I think it will find an audience that might appreciate it quite well.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, cheers.
Very well done. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks.
Well, thank you very much, Richard. And I'm going to stop the recording.